Oil marketers have argued that it is not normal for Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited to sell fuel produced locally from Dangote refinery to Nigerians at pump price higher than imported fuel. Coming under the umbrella of Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, the oil marketers stressed that it then means that there was no celebration if imported petroleum products are cheaper. Well, in recent years, the move towards deregulation has gained momentum as government seeks to allow market forces to dictate the price of petrol. This shift aims to reduce the financial burdens of subsidies, encourage private sector participation, and stimulate competition in the oil and gas industry. However, the deregulation process has sparked debate about the benefits and challenges, particularly its effect on the cost of living and inflation. Well, let's look at this conversation, pricing, and all of that. I am being joined live from Richmond in the United States of America, Mr. Adeyemi Adeoye. He's an energy policy analyst and a publisher based at .com. Thank you so much, Mr. Adeoye. It's good to see you. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Tolu. It's good to see you again. Thanks for having me.
All right, then. Well, at this time where we've had this back and forth with pricing of PMS down here, I know you're following the story, following the news. Let me start with the issue of NNPC not being a regulator in this market. Many seem not to understand that things have changed since the implementation of the PIA started. Can you make us understand this? Talking about them fixing prices.
Okay, so once again, thanks for having me, Tolu, and good morning from here to Nigerians. It's a beautiful thing to see that the sentiments and the undue emotions that have surrounded this conversation since the advent of the Dangote refinery is kind of simmering down. And when we take the sentiments out of the conversation, then the real talk can now begin. And I'm seeing that the real talk is starting because, of course, I've been monitoring and observing, the conversation. So now the technical know-hows will now be discussed, basically. So every Nigerian wants petrol at the least price they can get, because of course it's the mainstay of our day-to-day life in Nigeria when we talk about generating power, moving our cars and everything. And this is the reason that we need to understand that what Alhaji Aliko Dangote has done as a businessman, as a Nigerian, is beautiful and is laudable, and we should give him his flowers. He should be celebrated, because he has heard where a lot of investors or businessmen have, failed to even whisper. So investing in Nigeria is going to create jobs, is going to create a lot of opportunities for the Nigerian people. However, the oil industry has an operational manual. There's a way it functions. The NNPC is our common patrimony. We all own the NNPC. Every Nigerian owns the NNPC. And ordinarily, it is representing the interest of Nigerians. So, but in this deregulated system that we have seen, especially since the PIA came into effect, the NNPC is not a regulator, right? This is an angle that many people still do not understand, but it's not a regulator. If it's a regulator, definitely its role will be to come out in the open, maybe via a press conference, and announce that this is the price that government will be selling. But as we've seen, it is still the Dangote refinery that announced the prices. And we also need to take this into cognizance. What is going on now is a JV. It's like a joint venture, right? NNPC is used to joint ventures. They have joint ventures all over the upstream with different international oil companies operating in Nigeria. So this is what has come down now to the relationship between the Dangote refinery and the NNPC. So it's a joint venture. NNPC, supplies Dangote refinery crude and also gets in return a refined product for the Nigerian for Nigeria to wet the country, basically. So this is the relationship that is going on, and that is why negotiation was important. And if you observe, Tolu, you will see that the Dangote refinery did not come out with a price. Everybody was like, oh, what is the price going to be? What is the price going to be? They didn't announce a price because they also need to be able to negotiate properly. And the NNPC is the chief negotiator in this instance because it is supplying crude. As government is supplying crude to Dangote. Dangote is also sourcing crude from Brazil and from the United States, but the NNPC is supplying crude. And on the strength of that, it goes into that negotiation. Now the key thing I want Nigerians to take away is this. NNPC has announced that. Several times they've announced that the Dangote refinery is free to deal with any marketer on a willing buyer, willing seller basis. They are free to deal with any marketer. But that negotiation did not start at the price NNPC or Dangote refinery and NNPC announced. The negotiation started higher. And it is for very obvious reasons to look. Everywhere in the world, right here in the United States, the average price for gas or for petrol is $3.33 a gallon. $3.33. If you divide that, a gallon is about 4 liters. Now, that is about 5,279 naira for that 4 liters. If you further break that down, you will be getting 1,119 naira 75 kobo a liter. So this is the amount Dangote would have been selling. It wouldn't have been less than 1,300 if Dangote is allowed to function as a business entity that it is. There's nothing wrong in that. It's not a charity organization. But if the negotiation did not come into place, Nigerians would have been buying fuel at no less than 1,300 because it's an international product. Yes, we have it in Nigeria. We have crude oil. We refine it. But Nigerians ought to understand, to refine crude oil, you need to first of all produce crude oil. And to produce crude oil, you need to have what is called an oil rig. The cheapest you can get an oil rig today is about $100,000 per day. Between 100 to 150,000 United States dollars a day. So if you have maybe you have a marginal field and you're producing and you're paying $150,000 a day for your crude oil, then you will pay for the vessel to take it to Dangote. I mean, Dangote is not going to pay you in naira; it's going to pay you in dollars. So all these are factors that goes into it. So it's not like other commodities. It is an internationally determined commodity, and the pricing is not something that is very easy. That was why Dangote couldn't come out to announce pricing. It has to go into negotiation first from its suppliers, which in this case is the NNPC.
Brilliant stuff. The cost now that you mentioned above 1,000 naira. And we know that we've been buying this product in some cases before now, 600 naira, 620 in some cases. And now it's about 800 naira plus, in some cases 900 naira. That means there is still, if we're not going to use that word, subsidy, someone is paying for that difference. There's a differential, obviously. So NNPC takes responsibility for this, or who?
Absolutely. And that is the whole essence of the negotiation. Without that negotiation, in fact, let me put it straight. It is all because I've read a lot from the marketers, especially the IPMAN and the DAPMAN and all the rest of the marketers they could have gone into negotiation too. They could have discussed. The truth of the matter is that it is only NNPC that could have gone into that type of negotiation because NNPC is coming to the table from a position of strength. Right, because they have a partnership with the Dangote refinery and they have other businesses they are supplying crude. So they can come and say, look, this has to be this way. This has to be this way. The IPMAN and the other marketers, they can do that because Dangote is a profit-making organization. It's not a charity organization. So the only thing that is important to the Dangote refinery is to make profit, which is the same thing important to any business. So now the NNPC went into this negotiation because it also understands as the last resort, in terms of fuel distribution in the country. NNPC is mandated by the Petroleum Industry Act to make sure that there are no queues in the country. So it's not like even if they don't want to do it, the law mandates NNPC as the supplier of the last resort to make sure that there's petroleum products across Nigeria. Now, that negotiation is such that NNPC took all the calculations in and said, this is a fair pricing that we know we can withstand. Because what NNPC was paying out, you might want to call it subsidy or you call it under recovery. Those are just semantics. The point is that, like you said, somebody is paying the difference. And of course, that is NNPC on behalf of the government, you know. And of course, we know that this is under the direction of the president, who has also said he wants to see this situation, totally resolved. And that was why he directed the NNPC to make sure that crude oil to the Dangote refinery is sold in Naira, right? It's not because NNPC produces the crude oil in dollars, like I've just enumerated, right? And it has to now sell to Dangote refinery in Naira. That is good faith. That is good faith because NNPC is now a business entity. Even if it's still owned, is our common patrimony, still owned by government, it is such that it is supposed to be generating profits. But now government has leaned backward to say, okay, sell to Dangote in Naira. If Dangote should sell as it should, the price of petrol across Nigeria will not be less than 1,300 as we speak. The United States is the highest producer of crude oil in the world today. And we are buying at 1,319 Naira a liter. And this is Texas, is a state with about 32 refineries, right? In Houston, Texas alone, we have 19 refineries. So if we are buying at 1,300, that tells you that that is the general cost because of the because of the factors that goes into producing crude. So NNPC is mitigating that shortfall. NNPC is managing that shortfall and paying that under recovery or subsidy so that Nigerians can get that petrol at $9.50 at the pump in Lagos, $9.60 across the southwest, and about 1,000 plus 1,050 or so in Borno State and the northeast and the rest of the country. So somebody is paying that differentials. But the good news, however, is this. Nigerians have complained about subsidy being back or whatever. NNPC was paying subsidy on the recovery of up to about 500 Naira a liter a couple of months ago. A couple of months ago, NNPC was paying about 500 Naira a liter on subsidy because Nigerians were buying about 650 or 700 at the pumps. So now what NNPC is paying by supplying crude to Dangote has been reduced to say about 200 Naira a liter in subsidy. So we see the subsidy, we see a downward slide of the subsidy payment or the under recovery of the NNPC. So monies can be freed to, other necessary areas of the economy. And so this is the take home from that. So the fact is that NNPC is doing that, is managing that differential so that Nigerians will not feel the brunt of this high petrol prices. That is actually a global phenomenon. It's not just happening in Nigeria, it is across the world. That was why the president asked the NLC to come and take a tour of African countries or West African countries to see the prices of petrol in the pumps across the African countries. I don't know if the NLC will be taking that offer or not, but from this standpoint, I can tell you that it is a global phenomenon. There's inflation across the world currently, and it's affecting everything. It's affecting everything.
It takes me back to the issue of deregulation in its entirety and where we stand with regards to that. Because some would tell you that why not just take the decision once and for all? Because when you look at it, how sustainable now do you think this is also moving forward? What do you think would happen moving on with regards to the downstream and practicalizing our PIA?
So what I think is in the downstream sector, deregulation, total deregulation, because when we talk about this partial deregulation, it's complete deregulation of the downstream sector is important. But when you look at the purchasing power of the country, the purchasing power is low in Nigeria. What is the current minimum wage in Nigeria today? I think it's about 70,000 Naira. That is low. So in every society, in every economy, there are subsidies. Here in the United States, there are subsidies, a lot of subsidies actually. So you can determine where you want to put your subsidy. Do you want to put it in education? Do you want to put it in health, in the health sector? Do you want to put it in defense? Do you want to put it in the agricultural sector? So it is a discussion we need to have as a nation moving forward. Where do we want these subsidies? Now, what has been happening in the past is that marketers, petroleum marketers have been getting subsidies, and they've done all manner of things with that subsidy. Some failed to bring in the product, some brought in all manner of products with the lowest quality wherever they can get it. And that brings me back to the issue of marketers. If marketers are allowed to bring in products, because right now the pricing is not to their profit. If they are allowed to bring in products, what you will get is that everybody will bring in all manner of product. The quality will be the second or the third discussion. The primary conversation will be, where can I get cheap product that Nigerians can afford? Because the marketers don't want the product lying in their tank forever. They want to sell it. So right now the regulation is important, but at the moment, government intervention is essential. We cannot move away from government. So that is what you're seeing. That is what you're seeing currently, and that is why NNPC negotiated these prices with Dangote, because if Dangote is allowed, like I said, to sell as a business entity, Nigerians definitely would not be able to afford it because of the purchasing power parity. But in the long run, this is the short-term views that I just proposed. Like, government is doing the right thing by intervening in this regard. Now, the next thing is to ensure that Dangote is also, of course, free and able to supply to independent marketers if they are able to negotiate on their own and do a willing buyer, willing seller negotiation with Dangote. Because what is important right now is that the whole country, the queues must end across the country. It doesn't tell well in 2024 that a major oil producing country, the largest oil producing country in Africa, is still having fuel queues across the country. It's not good for the optics, and it reduces our negotiating power when we are sitting on the table. I mean, the president just came back from China. When we're sitting on the table with investors, with other government, it weakens us as a people. We are not taken seriously when we have all this all these opportunities, and we are still having fuel queues across the country. So deregulation is still the solution, but in the meantime now, because of the purchasing power and our domestic economy, it is important for government to intervene. At the later end, saying the medium to long term, yes, full deregulation of the downstream sector would be very appropriate, but we need to get the mechanisms right, such that by the time that the regulation comes in, the regulator of the oil industry, I think that is the NMDPRA, would have been empowered enough in terms of equipment, in terms of people, in terms of ability to monitor the system, so that the people are not at the receiving end, because marketers all want profit. There's nobody looking out for anybody. It's all about profit. This is business. So that is why I started by saying, I'm glad that the sentiments and the emotions are going out for the real conversations to now begin. People have been hoping, when Dangote refinery comes, Nigerians are going to buy fuel at 200 naira a liter. That is wishful thinking, because right now the commodity is not selling anywhere in the world below what we are seeing, below the prices I just quoted. And this is even in countries that are producing far, far more than Nigeria is producing. So if those countries with far more production are buying at a higher rate, and they have refineries, I just told you that only the state of Texas has 32 refineries. Yeah, there are refineries in Oklahoma, in Louisiana, and everywhere. But only one state has 32 refineries. Nigeria is only talking about, say, one refinery now, functional atop the balance. We are hoping the Port Harcourt refinery comes on stream. So these are challenges. And another point to note is that from my findings, it appears that the Dangote refinery is still unable to supply the negotiated, agreed quantity of petroleum products per day. And that is why we still see the fuel queues. The NNPC, from what I've read, negotiated 25 million liters per day. 25 million liters per day. And the last I understood was that it's about 11 million liters have been the highest that the Dangote refinery has been able to supply. Now, I would not know the reason for that shortfall or the gap, but what the NNPC negotiated is about 25 million liters per day. And I mean, that should, if that is well distributed across the country, the queues should have disappeared by now. So because in about 4 days of distribution, we should have 100 million liters across the country. So that would have dissipated the fuel queues. But unfortunately, Dangote refinery has not been able to supply that amount or that quantity on a daily basis to the country. So that is why we still see some queues across the country. But having said that, it is still important to understand that at the end of the day, all this will fizzle out and the economics of the demand and supply would take shape, because where the government is going, I think, is total deregulation of the downstream sector, so that everybody can play as, with a very strong regulator, ensuring that, Nigerians are not shortchanged, either by quality of product or by pricing.
Interesting conversation, Mr. Adeyemi Adeoye. I must thank you so much for your position on this issue, letting us understand more around the downstream operations and this pricing issues around Dangote and the NNPCL. Mr. Adeyemi Adeoye, he joined us from the United States of America. He's an energy policy analyst and is a publisher at BizTellers.com. BizTellers.com, I beg your pardon. Thank you so much. Do enjoy the rest of your day. I hope to see you again soon.